This is a channeled message from Adama on the higher faculties and spiritual tools. Now, it is recommended that before listening to this channeling, one go back and listen to the previous channelings done, but specifically the previous channeling done on the higher faculties and the lower faculties, for this knowledge will build heavily off of the knowledge transmitted during that channeling. But, of course, if you are already advanced in these, shall we say, hermetic knowledges or these new age spiritual knowledges, then you may find that it is not necessary for you to listen to this channeling. But, of course, if you find that this information does not make sense to you, please go back and listen to the previous channelings, and then perhaps this will be of more value to you. But that being said, a brief refresher on the definitions of these two terms with which we are working tonight. First of all, the higher faculties are any ability which one gains from their higher self. And these are frequently referred to as the clairs, so clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairempathic, claircognizant, etc. And they are also considered to encompass the part of the astral body and pretty much anything that has to do with the connection to the higher realms. Now, spiritual tools in this case will refer to anything which enhances one's ability to learn or utilize these higher faculties. So in this way, the tools which we may speak of the most tonight will most likely be meditation and plant medicine, for these are the two most powerful tools available on Earth at this moment. But later on that, after we have spoken on the nature of the higher faculties first. So as I have said, the higher faculties are a gift to one's incarnate self from their higher self. And indeed, your higher self is in charge of whether or not you have access to these higher faculties. So that being said, if you find that you do not have access to your higher faculties, then you may ask your higher self for this access. For indeed, your higher self may choose to block off this access of your higher faculties until you have the awareness and wherewithal to ask or to make this request from your higher self. Now, that being said, if you still do not have access to your higher faculties after reaching out to your higher self in this way, you may then conduct perform some of the actions mentioned in the previous channeling on the higher faculties, including but not limited to processing trauma and limiting beliefs and releasing them, and working on grounding yourself, and then working on access to your lower faculties. However, working on access to your lower faculties may not always increase your awareness and abilities of the higher faculties. However, sometimes it may, but this is usually dependent on the person and the situation. So if you attempt to awaken your higher faculties by awakening your lower faculties, please note that this is not always the most reliable form of doing this. However, the most reliable form of awakening your higher faculties is indeed by requesting these abilities from your higher self, and also perhaps requesting these abilities from your spirit guides as well. For indeed, your spirit guides may aid you in not only awakening these abilities, but also becoming more aware of them. For indeed, you may awaken your higher faculties without becoming fully aware of them. But I will speak a bit on that in a moment. Now, I would first like to note that each of these higher faculties is of a similar nature. So they all involve the manipulation of the higher frequencies and the reception of energy of the higher frequencies in a similar way. But for the case of this channeling, we will refer to the clairs as a separate form of higher faculty than the astral body and astral travel. For indeed, astral travel and the higher forms of energetic healing that may occur as a result of one's higher self. For indeed, the nature of the clairs is much more receptive than those of the other higher faculties. And to clarify this, I mean that one must receive energy when using the clairs, and when using the other higher faculties, it is much more common that one will be giving off energy or putting out energy. But that being said, tonight we will be speaking exclusively on the clairs. And indeed, perhaps we may speak on the other forms, on the other abilities of one's higher self, of the other higher faculties. However, for most people, the ability of one's astral body is something that just comes with experience and practice. So no matter how much I may explain your astral body to you, this may not help you feeling it. For the astral body is similar to, or for when one wishes to perceive astral travel, it is similar to when they wish to differentiate between each of the clairs. For indeed, these are very subtle vibrations, and they require quite a bit of finesse and awareness of the higher frequencies and their very many intricacies. But that being said, that is all I wish to speak on for the astral travel part, and back to the clairs. Now, I would like to give a brief definition of the clairs that we will cover tonight. So, clairaudient roughly translates to clear hearing and is the reception of audio messages. Clairvoyance roughly translates to clear seeing and is the reception of visual messages. Clairsentience roughly translates to clear feeling and is the transmission of, or the reception of, feelings. Claircognizance roughly translates to clear knowing and is the reception of thoughts. And finally, clairempathy, clairempathy is roughly translates to clear empathy or clear feeling of emotions, and is the reception of the emotion or sensation, the emotion or feeling from a being outside of oneself. Now, there are indeed quite a few other forms of the clairs. However, they are not quite as relevant to the human beings collective as a whole at this moment, for they are of a much more subtle vibration than these clairs that I have mentioned now. And indeed, perhaps I did mention the clairs in the order from least subtle to most subtle. However, of course, this may depend on each individual person, and for some, clairempathy may come much more easily to them than clairvoyance, and for another being, the opposite may be true as well. So, of course, thus is the nature of individuality, and you may find that you may have a propensity for one clair over another, and it may be for no particular rhyme or reason, or perhaps it may make perfect sense to you. Now, that being said, this channel does have quite an inclination towards perceiving her clairs, and recently she has had them brought online much more intensely. So now she is able to differentiate between each of them. And although this is a new ability for her, she is very quickly learning this. And this is why I have chosen this time to bring this knowledge through her. For indeed, she does re-listen to all of these channelings and learn from them, just as the other beings on Earth may as well. For despite her role as a channel in these messages, this is a lesson for her as well. And she is a student of Earth, just as all human beings are. Myself included, however, to a different extent. But I have spoken on that previously, and I will speak on it further in the future. However, for those who are curious at the moment, my name is Ascended Master Adama, and I am the High Priest of Telos. And for more information on who I am and where I came from, please check out the channeled message titled The Legend of Lemuria and the Fifth Dimensional Earth. For this is the story of my homeland and how I came to be where I am now. But I digress. Back to the clairs. Now, one may awaken their clairs for many different reasons, and usually this reason is because they are being prepared to aid Mother Gaia in her transition from the third dimension to the fifth dimension in a much more visceral and tangible way. And indeed, this channel has already felt this call, as she has recently started posting these channelings not only on YouTube but also on Instagram. And indeed, I would like to note that this channel has expressed and experienced much resistance to her presence on social media. However, this is her soul calling, and she is not ignoring it despite her initial distaste towards this path. And so, indeed, one may find themselves called on a similarly distasteful path as this channel has experienced when they are being called to awaken their higher faculties. For indeed, when one is called to awaken their higher faculties in a very intense way that is healthy and grounded still, they may find that they are being done so not so that they may keep their higher faculties internally and save them for themselves, but so that they may express these higher faculties and share them with the world. For thus is the necessity of Mother Gaia at the moment, or thus is the needs of Mother Gaia at the moment. And the human collective as a whole needs more beings to be open about their spirituality and to, shall we say, shout it from the rooftops that the second coming of Christ is here, but it is not as the Christians say, for this second coming of Christ is the coming of Christ consciousness. But I will speak on that later, and if you are curious for a little bit more information about this, I have recently channeled a small message through this channel that she has posted on her Instagram account regarding the Christ consciousness. And indeed, many of her posts on this account may be channeled information from me or her other very many guides, and the other future guides which she may acquire. Now, a quick note for any being who is being called to share their spirituality in this way. I would like to note that if you so choose to express the vulnerability necessary to share your spirituality, you may do so in the utter faith and confidence that your guides will be watching out for you and protecting you from any negative backlash. And your guides will ensure that any being who is not capable of hearing your message or capable of receiving that energetic frequency will not find your account or your work or whatever way it is that you choose to express your spirituality. For those who choose to walk this difficult path of open spirituality will indeed be divinely protected, as this channel and others in her life have recently learned. And indeed, you may also ask Spirit for aid in whatever way it is that you choose to express your spirituality. For if you are drawn to express your spirituality, then it is most likely that Spirit will be able to find a way for you to make money off of this. For Spirit knows how big of a sacrifice you make in expressing your spirituality in this open and vulnerable way. And so Spirit will almost always strive to compensate you in a way that is equally valuable to you. And for most, that is money. For money is a cause of great stress in many people's lives. But that is neither here nor there for this lesson. Now, that being said, when one awakens their higher faculties, it may at first be quite uncomfortable. And as I have explained in the previous channeling on the nature of spiritual awakenings, one may find that these symptoms of their higher faculties awakening are quite physically uncomfortable, but they also may find that they are quite mentally uncomfortable as well. And as this channel has experienced, there may be symptoms that arise such as nervous system dysregulation, brain fogginess, and perhaps even symptoms of ADD or ADHD, as this channel has experienced in the past 3 days. However, I would like to note for these ADHD symptoms, the ADHD medications will not work because this is not a permanent chemical imbalance in the brain. It is just a mere short-circuiting of the neural circuits in the brain. And perhaps even the energetic meridians of one's consciousness and the way that they connect to the physical organ of the brain. And so in this way, one may find that spiritual awakenings can be quite tumultuous times, and they may be especially so when one is awakening their higher faculties. For in order for one to awaken their higher faculties, there must be a bit of neural rewiring that goes on in the physical organ of their brain, and there must be an intensifying of their etheric body that creates the bridge between their higher self and their physical form. And also, they may find that their Ba is strengthened in their Merkaba field. And so in this way, their physical body as a whole will be holding more energy due to not only the nature of the spiritual awakening, but also the nature of the higher faculties coming online, especially the clairs, due to their receptive nature. Now, when one's clairs first come online, it may be difficult for them to realize that what they are experiencing is in fact their intuition and not their own consciousness. And indeed, this channel has been experiencing her clairaudience for about 2 months or so now, and she has not quite known that that is what she is experiencing. However, at the beginning, it was very few and far between in the instances in which it occurred, but now it is almost the exclusive way in which she is receiving these channeled messages, with the exception of a few words here and there which are received clairvoyantly, and occasionally a few difficult sentiments for me to articulate that will be portrayed clairsentiently. But of course, thus is the nature of channeling, and thus is the joy of working with such a well-spoken channel. Oh, thanks, Adama. You're so sweet. But indeed, that is partially why I chose this channel. For she is quite articulate and eloquently spoken, and this allows me to be more articulate and eloquently spoken through her. For as I have previously explained, the nature of channeling is that which limits me to the knowledge, or to the vocabulary and articulatory ability. Don't think that's a word, but the statement stands. The articulatory ability of the channel. So, as I have said previously, I may not teach this channel new words, but of course I may teach her new concepts through the words she already knows. But that being said, if one is having difficulty differentiating their higher faculties from their own thoughts, they may engage in meditation. And this is the first spiritual tool that we will talk about this evening. Now, before we continue on with the types of meditation that one may use to strengthen their higher faculties specifically, I would like to speak first on the versatile nature of meditation, for meditation is very frequently boxed into a very teeny tiny box, when in fact meditation is a very broad and expansive umbrella term. So, for the purposes of our channelings, we shall define meditation as any intentional action or lack of action. So, in this way, anything that you do with intention may be a meditation. So that means if you listen to your favorite song on repeat for 10 times with the intention of having as much enjoyment as you can during that experience, that is meditation. If you sit down for 3 seconds with the intention of taking one deep breath, that is a meditation. If you sit down for 2 hours and meditate while doing absolutely nothing, that is also a meditation. And if you want to draw or create art with the intention of it being a meditation, then it will be a meditation. So in this way, meditation can truly be anything that one does with intention, and intention is the purpose of meditation. For when one practices their intention, they may learn how to more easily interact and manipulate the reality around them, and also the reality inside of them. And so, in this way, one may find that the more intentional they are in their day-to-day life, then the more control they may have over their energy body and their manifestations. So that being said, some practical examples of turning an everyday task into a meditation could be your morning supplements. If you set the intention every morning before you take these supplements that you are taking these supplements to fuel your body and prepare it for the day, this is a meditation. And you may do so similarly with any meals you make. Now, if you go to the gym or exercise your body in any way, you may at the beginning of this workout, set the intention that you are going to take care of your body and help blow off steam or help burn off energy or grow your muscles or increase your endurance or whatever it is your intention is. Just setting this intention before your workout will make it into a meditation. And to take it a step further, you may then, during the action, during the workout, tune into your body, tune into yourself, and ask yourself how you're feeling, and then note how you're feeling, and note if any thoughts come up, and continue on in meditation in the more traditional way while you are still doing this activity. For you may meditate doing anything, anywhere, anytime. And it is all about intention. I feel I cannot stress that enough. Meditation can be anything, and it does not need to be a long period of time. It does not need to be a short period of time. Meditation may be anything that you want it to be. And indeed, meditation may be journaling. Meditation may be any kind of self-care practice. Meditation may be your nightly shower or your morning shower. Truly, it may be anything, and just increasing your intention will increase not only your ability to affect your physical reality, but also to perceive your higher faculties and lower faculties, of course. But after you have increased your intention and learned how to meditate in this more pervasive way, you may find that almost everything becomes a sort of meditation, and this will indeed help you increase your vibrational frequency quite intensely. And when this happens, you may find that your awareness of the higher vibrational frequencies also intensifies. And so after this happens, you may find that your ability to differentiate between your own thoughts and your clairs is increased. And perhaps your ability to differentiate between each of the individual clairs will also be increased. But some ways to meditate in order to increase the clairs specifically are to focus your energy in your third eye chakra. And perhaps you could, as this channel has, create a sort of room inside of your third eye chakra, a sort of mind palace, as this channel calls it, from the popular TV show. And in this mind palace, you may meet with any being with whom you would wish to communicate. And so at this moment, this channel and I are in the astral realm in a rather beautiful, small little greenhouse that she has built in her mind's eye, in her third eye. And it is a part of a larger property that makes up the rest of her mind palace, but each individual room has a specific purpose. And so this little greenhouse is where she meets with her guides. And you may find that if you create a similar room, you may choose any location that you want, but it may be easiest to choose a location that you have a lot of history at. So, for example, this is this channel's second mind palace, and when she was younger, her mind palace was that of her middle school, for she was very familiar with that layout, and it was, shall we say, very apt for a mind palace, or for the purposes of her mind palace at that time. But in this way, you may find that having a physical location, or perhaps not a physical, but a visual location for you to meet your guides in will allow for your guides to appear to you in a more visual form. And so this will train your clairvoyance. And similarly, any form of visualization will also help you train your clairvoyance, but specifically this form, for it is a mixture of visualization and calling in the higher guides. Now, that being said, when you meet in this way, you may find that it is also easier for you to differentiate between whether or not you are receiving messages clairaudiently, clairvoyantly, or otherwise. For if you are receiving the messages clairaudiently, you may imagine or perceive that the version of you in your mind palace meeting with your guides is actively hearing the information that you are receiving. And indeed, this is what this channel is perceiving right now. But as I've said, this is a rather new development for her. So she is quite a bit shell-shocked by this information. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm here for it, but it's like, whoa. Indeed, it is like whoa, as you said. But that being said, there's one other form of communication that I have not yet spoken of that occurs through the higher faculties, and that is telepathy. And as I have said in previous channelings, telepathy is the use of the heart chakra and the third eye chakra in communication. So in this way, it may be considered a form of both the higher and the lower faculties, for it utilizes both one's ka and their ba in communication with another being's ka and ba. But this was spoken on more of in the previous channeling on the higher and the lower faculties, so please consult this channeling if you would like more information. But I bring this up now to note that indeed this is a form of communication that may occur in these higher realms as well, depending on the vibration of the being with whom you are communicating. So for me specifically, since I am of the 5th dimension and the 6th density, I may engage in telepathy with all of the beings of Earth. But thus is the nature of my incarnation on this Earth, albeit a very different incarnation from the ones you are experiencing, but still an incarnation nonetheless. But that being said, some of the beings of the higher faculties may not choose to engage telepathically, and they may choose to engage clairsentiently or claircognizantly. Or if they are imparting a very specific message, they may choose to engage clairaudiently, for usually clairaudience is reserved for the messages that need to be of the highest accuracy. For indeed, clairaudience is the clearest way to transmit a message to a being of the 3rd dimension, since the beings of the 3rd dimension are not usually as versed in the languages of energy as other beings. Now, that being said, I would now like to speak a bit on light language, on the language of light. And indeed, this is a gift that this channel has. However, she is currently suppressing it due to parts of her that judge herself for it. Yep, I do that. Thanks, Adama. Appreciate that. But that being said, this is something that she will awaken more over the coming weeks and months, and it is something that will aid her quite intensely on her journey going forward. For indeed, the language of light is a very powerful tool for any being who is walking the path of enlightenment and seeking to reach enlightenment before the end of this lifetime. Now, the language of light may sound a bit like gibberish to quite a few people, and indeed, that is why this channel judges herself for this gift. For the language of light may be compared to scat in jazz music, and has a bit of a nonsensical feel to it. But that is the nature of this language, for this is a language of pure sound vibration, and it does not have a tangible, translatable meaning. However, The language of light relies purely on the vibration of sounds coming out of the speaker's mouth to enact on the energy field of those beings who are listening. So this being said, if you witness one speaking the language of light, you may find that this may cause you to feel a particular way, be it good, bad, or just weird, as this channel frequently describes her feelings towards being exposed to the language of light. But I would also like to note that the language of light may be spoken through hand signals as well. For your hands are rather large chakras in your body, granted not as large as the major 7 chakras, but still a close to runner-ups. And so through the use of your hands and your hand chakras, you may create the same energetic ripples and repercussions as the spoken language of light. And this is similar to the, shall we say, interchangeable nature of the spoken word and sign language. So these are both forms of the same language, just in different formats. And so one may find that the sign language version of the language of light is much more visceral. Well, I'm hesitant to say that either one is more visceral than the other, simply due to the nature of the resonance that occurs via spoken word. But I will say that the one who is utilizing the light language when they are using their hands is a bit more present in the energy body of the beings who are receiving this light language. And so in this way, you may find that many speakers of the light language use their hands and their voice in tandem, for this is the most potent way to transmit these messages of the language of light. And so if you are on social media and you scroll across a post of a being speaking light language and using their hands at the same time, despite how weird this may look, you may indeed feel confident knowing that this being is having an impact on your energy field. Now, whether this is a positive or a negative impact, or a desirable or an undesirable impact, that is up to you. So as always, use your own intuition and discretion. But that being said, almost every being on Earth at the moment has the capacity to speak the language of light in both the spoken way and the sign way. So in this way, you need only request access for these abilities from your higher self or work on accessing them. And one way to work on accessing these abilities is to work on singing and dancing in a very ecstatic way. And I use the term ecstatic in this case to describe the nature of these endeavors as very free-flowing and uninhibited, and perhaps even a little bit chaotic and unpredictable. And so the more that one can let themselves loose and let their physical body take over their movement and those sounds that they are making, then they may find that it is easier for them to speak the language of light. And similarly, it may also be easier for them to channel, for speaking light language and channeling are two sides of the same coin, shall we say. And the only difference is in the vibration with which one is tuning into. So, for example, in this channeling, Marlena is tuning into the vibrational frequency of her mind palace and therefore me. However, when she will start speaking the language of light, she will then be tuning into the vibrational frequency of the language of light and that message which she wishes to portray. Now, that being said, the language of light is not received in any of the ways in any of the clairs previously mentioned. It is received in a Clairgnostic way. And the Clairgnostic roughly translates to clear spirituality, if you will. However, this is a very rough translation. But in this Clairgnostic way, one may find that they are able to transmit energetic offerings to other beings. And indeed, they may also be able to receive energetic offerings themselves in this way, but that will just depend on the circumstance. And so in this way, the Clairgnostic ability may be the first ability in which one has the capacity to not only receive energy, but also to give energy. But this giving of energy may take a bit more effort and practice until one is proficient at it than it will for one to receive these Clairgnostic messages and this Clairgnostic knowledge. Now, that being said, the best way for one to increase their Clairgnostic knowledge is by engaging in the second spiritual tool that we will speak of tonight, and that is plant medicine. Now, there are many types of plant medicine, but tonight we will speak of 4 different kinds, and that is Ayahuasca, Peyote, LSD, and Psilocybin mushrooms. Now, I would first like to explain the difference between Ayahuasca and Peyote, for they are both similar in the nature of the trip, shall you say, or the experience with the plant medicine, which we will indeed refer to as a trip in this channeling, for it is a very lighthearted way of referring to this healing journey which one may go on with the assistance of these plant medicines. But first, I would like to note that each of these plant medicines has a consciousness of their own. So there is a consciousness of ayahuasca, there is a consciousness of peyote and LSD and psilocybin mushrooms, respectively. So if you are engaging in any of these plant medicines, you may connect directly with the collective of the plant medicine, and this may aid you on your journey. Now, first of all, I would like to note that there are many similarities between the ceremonies of ayahuasca and peyote, but there are also a few subtle differences, and these differences may be integral in deciding whether or not you would like to choose either of these plant medicines. Now, I will first describe ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a plant medicine that comes from a flower, and this flower has been used among many, many ancient ceremonies from many hundreds of thousands of years ago until today. And indeed, this ancient plant was present during the time of Lemuria and Atlantis. And so you may note that this ayahuasca plant and this ayahuasca ceremony is one of a more of a knowledgeable manner. It is more about the cerebrality of the being and more about the intelligence and the consciousness, and less about the feeling and the embodiment. And that is where ayahuasca and peyote differ. For peyote is from a cactus, and it is also quite ancient. However, peyote revolves more around the emotional and the vibrational and subtle aspects of the healing journey. However, that's not to say that ayahuasca is not subtle either, but ayahuasca is of a much more cerebral and masculine nature, where peyote is much more feminine. Now, I would like to note that both of these plants have a very feminine nature due to the healing nature that they offer, but out of the two of these plants, ayahuasca energy acts more on one's masculine energy than it does on their feminine energy. But of course, that will differ depending on each individual person and the individual circumstances in which they are engaging in this plant medicine. Now, the similarities between these two ceremonies are the negative side effects which may occur, and those are side effects of extreme purging. Now, when these two plants engage with your physical form, they have an immediate response with your energy body and send an immediate message to your form to let it know that it needs to immediately release anything that is no longer serving it. And so this is where the purging comes into place. And for many beings, this may take the entirety of their first ceremony. And for some beings, it may take more than the entirety of their first ceremony. And this may last for weeks or months after their ceremony. Or they may have to engage in multiple ceremonies in order to fully receive this purging. But this purging may happen in a few ways. And of course, the first way is the most notorious, and that is the physical way. So this will include one vomiting or needing to relieve themselves over and over and over again. And occasionally they may even have excess mucus or start crying. And although perhaps crying is much more frequent than the excess mucus part. And indeed, excess saliva is a possible side effect as well. For this purging may happen in almost any way. But the other way that it may happen in that will take much longer, or that may take much longer, is the emotional way. For the peyote works much more on the physical form in this purging of emotions, and the ayahuasca works much more on the energetic and mental form than the peyote does. And so in this way, one may find that peyote clears up energetic blockages in their body, and the ayahuasca clears up energetic blockages in their energy body. And for more information on the differentiation between these two, please refer to the previous channeling on the spiritual nature of the human being. For despite the seemingly contradictory nature of the previous statement, it does indeed make sense when you have a proper knowledge of the human body and its energetic anatomy. But that is a slight digression. Now, when one undergoes a peyote or ayahuasca ceremony, as I have said, much of this ceremony may be spent processing these emotions and these parts of themselves that will prevent the ayahuasca and the peyote from providing the beings with the necessary knowledge that they desire. However, sometimes this purging may be the only offering that the plant medicine has to offer. For if one is not ready for the higher knowledge of the plant medicine, it is extremely rare that the plant medicine will offer this higher knowledge. However, in the cases in which this does occur, it is usually because the being has an extremely strong will and has demanded that the plant medicine share its secrets without the plant medicine's consent. And so these are the beings who are usually not recommended to engage in plant medicine until they have done a bit more integration and shadow work. But after one has completed the purging of these two plant medicines, they may find that they may receive quite the energetic and awareness upgrade from both of these plant medicines. And as previously, these offerings may be of similar nature, but affect different levels of the body. And I would also like to note that if you are able to get your hands on this plant medicine, you do not need to engage in a specific ritual or ceremony to receive these benefits. You may take these plant medicines in the safety of your own home, as long as you are with somebody who you trust. However, it may be in the highest and best good to have somebody who is familiar with the nature of these plant medicines nearby, or at least on call, in case you need a little bit of guidance or help grounding yourself through the intense vibrational frequencies that you may experience. But that being said, coming out the other side, the after effects of these two plant medicines may be quite vast, from more physical comfort in the body to decreased mental illness to even increased awareness of the higher realms and one's higher and lower faculties. And so if one is undergoing a spiritual awakening that is impacting their higher and lower faculties, they may find that they are drawn to engage in plant medicine. However, they may not necessarily be drawn to engage in peyote or ayahuasca, and they may indeed choose to engage in LSD or psilocybin. For indeed, LSD and psilocybin have a similar relationship to peyote and ayahuasca, so psilocybin and LSD are quite similar. However, psilocybin is of a much more feminine nature than LSD is, and this is quite similar to the masculine and feminine nature of the peyote and ayahuasca, in that LSD and LSD and psilocybin are both inherently feminine beings, for they are healers, but they indeed do have a slight difference, for LSD has a bit more masculine energy than psilocybin does. However, I would like to note that the balance between masculine and feminine energy for psilocybin mushrooms will depend on the strain. So, for example, penis envy is much more of a feminine strain than the Jedi strains are. But, of course, one may be drawn towards a specific strain depending on the balance of masculine and feminine energy in their body and how it will complement the balance of these energies in the psilocybin. But traditionally, in psilocybin ceremonies, the penis envy mushrooms are used when one is attempting to undergo a spiritual awakening. And as this channel has recently learned, the different strains may have different effects. So the strain that she was taking for quite some time had a lot of effect on the neurological level and was known for its side effect of neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. However, all psilocybin mushrooms do indeed increase neuroplasticity and and have a bit of neurogenesis, but this was increased for the strain which she was using. But the penis envy strains that she is using now are usually recommended for beings who wish to undergo a much more cerebral spiritual awakening, and indeed these strains are aiding her in differentiating between her higher faculties that are coming online. And so one may seek out these specific strains for for help in awakening their higher and lower faculties and their awareness of the higher realms. However, LSD may also aid one in this awareness, but it will be an awareness of a much more physical sense. And so in this way, one may find that LSD helps them see auras, whereas psilocybin helps them read energy, if this makes sense. And so in this way, psilocybin is much more of an internal upgrade, whereas LSD is much more of an external upgrade. And so when one interacts with the molecule of LSD and receives its energetic upgrades, they may find that the upgrades are of a much more masculine nature. And so these upgrades may be, as I have said, seeing auras, or they may be of the concrete knowledges of the universe. And so in this way, one may find that they receive many more intellectual downloads when they are engaging with LSD than they are with psilocybin. And when they are engaging with psilocybin, they may find that their downloads are much more energetic and emotional. Now, as with the ayahuasca and peyote, one does not need to undergo a ceremony with these two substances. However, unlike ayahuasca and peyote, it is recommended to undergo a ceremony with these two substances, for they lack the grounding aspects that peyote and ayahuasca have. And this is indeed why peyote and ayahuasca cause such an intense purging process. For these purges allow one to stay grounded in their physical form and in the third dimensional reality while they are undergoing their trip and expanding their awareness of the higher realms with the aid of the plant medicine. And so when one undergoes a ceremony, this will help ground themselves further. And so this will not be quite as necessary with the ayahuasca and peyote due to the nature of those plant medicines. But for the LSD and psilocybin, it is recommended to, at the very least, engage in some sort of grounding practice during the ingestion and during the trip as well. But the best way for one to fully ground themselves in this way would be to have a full, proper ceremony. But please keep in mind that the limits to this ceremony are quite possibly non-existent. So if there is anything that grounds you specifically, do not doubt yourself and just go with your intuition and trust that you will know what is best for yourself. But coming out the other side of a psilocybin trip, one may find that it may take them a few days to fully integrate the knowledge, and the mushroom spirits may stay with them for quite some time after this trip. For the mushrooms are a very pervasive species, or a very pervasive genus, and they do love their human beings, so they will always attempt to stick around for a bit longer. And so connecting with the spirit of the mushrooms in a more direct sense may help them accomplish their goals. For the mushrooms have a very intense history with humanity, and indeed the mushrooms are partially the reason that humanity gained consciousness. For the mushrooms were a gift from the higher realms to allow the human beings to develop into the beings that they are today, or into the beings that they have the potential to be today. For there is much unachieved potential of the human physical form on Earth at this point, but that is rapidly changing and the potential is indeed expanding. So as the Earth ascends to the fifth dimension, not only do the humans achieve more of their potential, but so does their potential increase. So that being said, you may find that as you go along your spiritual journey and awaken your higher faculties, you may find that there are more of your higher faculties to awaken. And of course, thus is the nature of the spiritual journey, but also thus is the nature of Mother Gaia's journey at this time. And so you may find that tapping into the frequency of Mother Gaia in the fifth dimensional sense may help you access your fifth dimensional frequencies as well, and therefore your higher faculties. But thus, this is a form of meditation to bring us back to one of our other tools. Now, I would like to speak a bit on the practical application of the higher faculties of the clairs before we call it quits for this evening. Now, first I would like to speak on clairvoyance, for that is the higher faculty that this channel is currently in the process of awakening in its highest form. So, clairvoyance is typically used as a form of divination. Now, divination is the use of one's higher faculties to receive a message from the higher realms, be it their higher self or another being of the light. And so in this way, one may find that all of their clairs are used as a form of divination, but specifically, clairvoyance may be the most visceral form of this divination. But this channel has been gifted a very unique gift in that she has been gifted the ability to see the highest possible outcome of a situation. However, she has not been gifted to see the other possible outcomes, so she may find frequently in her life that just because she sees the highest possible outcome of a situation, this does not mean that it will come to pass, for thus is the nature of the free will of the beings on this planet. And so if the beings who play a role in this situation, in this outcome coming to pass, do not choose their highest and best choices, then this channel will not see her visions come to pass. But it is our goal here in the higher realms that this will happen as little as possible. For if this happens frequently, then there will be no need for her to have this gift. And indeed, her higher self gifted her this talent, this ability, in hopes that it will help her on her spiritual journey. And indeed, she has already made great use of it in not only choosing to post these channelings on YouTube, but also in choosing to expand her reach on the internet to Instagram and Facebook as well. For indeed, these were difficult choices for her, but she took a leap of faith, as she says. So this is one practical application of clairvoyance. However, one may find that clairvoyance may come into play in the form of déjà vu, and so when one experiences déjà vu, they may know that they are on the path that is in their highest and best good. For when one experiences déjà vu, it is their higher self giving them a feeling of resonance. And so, as this channel knows, it is sometimes that they have previously received a glimpse of this moment from their higher self before this incarnation, but sometimes it is your higher self giving you a message, letting you know that you are on the right path and all is going well. But of course, the possibilities and uses for one's clairvoyance are limitless. So if you find your clairvoyance presenting you with a new use, merely trust your intuition and go with it. But that being said, I would now like to speak on clairaudience. Now, clairaudience is another very clear form of divination in which one may receive a very verbal message. And in this way, there is very little room for misinformation due to the very direct transmission of this message in a very literal and verbal way. So, Clairaudience is usually reserved for spirit guides and higher beings passing on messages to beings of the lower dimensions, and indeed, Exhibit A would be this channeling. For this channeling, as I have said previously, is received about 90% clairaudiently, and that percentage is going up with each channeling and each day. Now, finally, clairsentience, claircognizance, and clairempathy and clairgnosticism are all used similarly in that they are used to guide one's choices throughout their day-to-day life. And so the feeling of resonance may be a combination of all four of these feelings, all four of these clair abilities. And indeed, one may find that these abilities are unique to them, and the way that they use these abilities are unique to them. So, for example, for this channel, she uses her clairsentient abilities to receive the general messages from the collective. For the collective very rarely puts its messages and its vibrations into tangible forms. So in this way, her clairsentience is the best way for her to reach out to these collectives in this way. And she may also connect to smaller collectives by using her clairsentience as well. Now, her clairempathy, she has awakened in the past few years a recent gift in this clairempathy where she may empathically feel in her own body the physical pains and aches of another being. And this will help her much further down the line when she begins to engage in energetic healing work with beings in this reality, in this incarnation, in this third dimension. And so in this way, she may be able to intuitively know where beings are experiencing the most discomfort without them ever saying anything. And so this will play two roles. First of all, it will increase the products of her offerings towards these beings, and also it will increase these beings' trust in her, for it will be a very non-disputable method of her letting them know that she does indeed have abilities of the extrasensory perception. But of course, everybody has ESP abilities. It is merely up to you to develop them. However, it is my hope that this channeled message has helped you to learn how to develop them and why it is beneficial to develop them. However, if you are still curious about your higher and lower faculties, you may listen to the other channelings previously done, and you may listen to channelings done in the future. And if you so desire, you may receive more energetic offerings and lessons by asking me, Adama, to take you to the Jade Temple while you sleep. For that is where I reside, and if you desire to work with me or the beings with whom I live, then you may ask me to take you to the Jade Temple, and I would be more than happy to take you there. For we have many faculties here that are being underused by our beings here, so we would love to bring more beings from the surface here to Telos, and as you say, share the wealth with them. But that is all we have for this evening, and as always, it was a pleasure. Toodaloo!